We are live. Good, I think I say afternoon now, isn't it? 12 o'clock noon. So good noon o'clock. And then we're going to the afternoon. Give me 1 minute, I can say good afternoon. How is everybody? Hope everybody's well. If you're on this, start commenting just so we can see this. Apparently I can't post comments. Why can't I post comments? That's weird. Interesting. Normally I can.
Don't ask me. This is a completely new platform for me, so.
I know. This is how we worked last time. So if you're joining, guys, let's put some comments in here. And if not, I will open up LinkedIn and have a look on there. Are you sending any comments coming? We've got a fair few people coming along.
Fab.
So we won't be by ourselves.
Do you know what? I could talk to anyone about mental health. So if it's just you and me, Rich, it's all good.
We normally do have a good laugh. I mean, for the world's story.
Of course.
There you go. Okay. I wonder if that's going to double talk now. Anyway, we'll see. So we might get started because this is being recorded, I believe. Make sure I don't have to press any buttons. No? Fantastic. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you again. If you are seeing this on LinkedIn, do just put something in the comment section and we can say hello, answer any questions, do all that kind of stuff. But we're here today to have a little chat, have a bit of a laugh, have a bit of a conversation around something which probably shouldn't be laughed around too much, but mental health. And we're going to talk around what mental health has looked like, what mental health will look like, the things we can do, some of the tips that employers can do looking forward to 2022 and looking forward to the future of the workplace, I guess. Obviously, me and Sally are big mental health advocates. Sally educates people in mental health first aid, mental health in general, building resilience, building kind of a positive mindset. So I won't introduce Sally fully, I'll let her do that. But nice to be with you, Sally. Looking forward to having a conversation. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, happy to. And thank you for inviting me to have this conversation as well. Yeah, I'm Sally Desborough. I'm primarily a mental health first aid instructor. I'm also a suicide first aid instructor, and I write lots of bespoke programs, workshops, webinars for different clients, from 20-minute workshops through to full one-day programs working with line managers. My working background is in HR. So I started working in HR back in 2008, and I started the transition into the mental health and wellbeing space in 2017. Two key drivers for doing that, and I know you shared that on LinkedIn this morning, Richard, so thanks for that. But my working with lots of people, in the HR area who experience lots of different kind of issues. There might have been physical health issues or mental health issues. And so mental health was part of the day-to-day conversation, supporting managers, coaching managers on how to support mental health in the workplace. And so naturally through my HR roles, it kind of became a day-to-day thing, and developing line manager workshops around that kind of best practice. So that's one of the key areas. The second key area, the main key driver really, is my own personal experience of mental illness. In 2016, I was diagnosed with severe depression along with symptoms of anxiety. And that pretty much took me out for the whole of 2016. I was unwell at the beginning of the year, but it took me a while to open up about it. Mental health wasn't really part of the day-to-day conversation, so I struggled to share that experience. Wasn't sure if people get it. So by the time I did talk about it, I was quite in a deep, poor mental health state. So I started coming out of the other side of that towards probably the summer, and then fully out of that, towards the end of the year as well. So 2016 was a bit of a bump in the road, shall we say. And it was that made me want to do more to raise awareness about mental health issues, drive home the message that absolutely anybody can experience a mental health issue. I never imagined that I would find myself in that situation, but I did, for one reason or another, or various reasons. And also having positive and supportive conversations. I had some incredible conversations when I was unwell, and it made me scratch my head thinking, why didn't you speak up sooner, Sally? These people get it. And then there were some other conversations where not so good. Both of those stick with me. And other conversations where people just didn't know how to respond. They didn't know what to say, and didn't really know what to react. And so all of that kind of sat with me. And I just thought we need to do more to raise awareness. So I was very fortunate to be approached to become an MHFA instructor, was sponsored to go through that program. And I initially did that on the side of my full-time HR roles, but at the end of 2019, decided to leave the HR corporate world to focus all of my time on mental health advocacy, on raising awareness, delivering mental health first aid courses, and just trying to encourage that conversation as much as possible.
Got through quite a journey to, I think, to get to where you are today, obviously, but then also to learn more about how you can help people better. Sometimes that builds up resilience, right? And you have to go through those traumas or life experiences. You learn to manage and be better within yourself and look after yourself a bit better. Sometimes we have to experience those downs to recognize we need to make a change. And you went through that, and now you're on the other side helping other people learn how to do that. So it's great to see that you are taking that process to help others. What was I going to say? I'm going to dive into your journey a bit more in a bit more time. But to start with, I just want to kind of go through some statistics for why this conversation is so important. And I've gone here because I'm not great at remembering stuff. I have to write this stuff down. And I wanted to make some kind of specifics to what we're doing. So 1 in 4 people are still experiencing mental health challenges throughout the year. And then that equates to 1 in 6 people in the workplace are experiencing mental health challenges. And that could be anything: burnout, anxiety, depression, stress. And then that's costing the workforce and the workplace. This is the latest statistics. It's hard to find it for kind of last year, but the year before that, 34 billion pounds. I think 34 billion, or I've read million. It could be billion.
When was that for? When was that for? So Deloitte released published a report in January 2020 that estimated the cost of mental ill health or poor mental health to UK employers between 42 and 45 billion pounds.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. There's a few different ones out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
So thanks, Sally, for updating me on that. The other one here I've got is 72 million days are lost per year by employees. And that's a huge number as well. So with that cost, you can see how that cost weighs up. Employee per year, £1,300 for time off and for sickness, which is also, if you've got 10 people, that's 13 grand per year you're spending on poor health, poor mental health. So that's the reason why I think, part of the reason why I'm bringing these conversations down and trying to have these discussions about how we can improve our mental health and the challenges we face and what we can do to be better within ourselves and kind of happier, I guess, in general. But you guys know me. I'll introduce myself again. I'm Rich. I'm the Director of Employees Health. Employees Health is a workplace wellbeing company which tries to help businesses help their workplace thrive, and we try to help employees. We try to educate employees to be happier and healthier. And I'm very lucky to have an amazing team, of which Sally is part of, to help us through that, help us do that, because wellbeing isn't just one area of the ability to learn about how you can improve your lifestyle in a few different areas. So I put a team together which can do that. And I'm very lucky to have an amazing team, and hopefully throughout the next kind of 3 or 4 years, we're going to carry on building that team, building the services to provide to help HR and help business owners create the best working environment possible to encourage good mental health, happiness, health, and a really nice place to go and work and be part of your life. So I mean, that's kind of my goal, and that's why I try and do what I do. My background is more physical health and behavior change. I'm beginning to turn the coin, wellbeing PT. So you see the link between exercise and wellbeing. Anyway, that's the boring bit out of the way. We're going to go into your story. I want to dive in a bit more into your depression what I know it can be a bit tough to just put out what you want to do, Sally. But a bit about what kind of, how you come to maybe get to those down points, and then what you did come out of that for me.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of lead up to 2016, what do you think got you into that position where depression was hit hardest, I guess?
Yeah, so what a great question. I think there's a lot of things that happened in the lead up to my depression, and I think the thing that probably pushed me over into that was overworking. So I was working too many hours, and I was throwing myself in because I wanted to do a really, really good job. I was so engaged with my work that I wanted to do an amazing job. So I was really committed to the work that I was doing, the team that I was working in, and I absolutely loved the culture and where I worked, and I learned a lot from that place. But because I wanted to do so well and show my conscientiousness, I think the overworking piece was the bit that probably tipped me over. But in the lead up to that, I'd experienced a significant relationship breakdown, which was probably a good thing, really. It was a good thing for me. But it's the fallout of that, of having to sell homes and all the knock-on relationship impacts that you have, and the feelings of failure, the feelings of what are people going to think of me? What does this mean for my friendships when you share friendships and stuff like that? And what are the family going to be thinking? All of that judgment. So I was carrying that a lot. And I suppose in that relationship, I wasn't happy for quite a period of time. But historically, I've never been a talker about feelings. I've had that unhelpful habit of just keeping everything bottled up inside. So I didn't really kind of open up about those things. So when that relationship broke down, I think it's quite a shock to a lot of people, because it was all behind closed doors, this unhappiness, and in front of the door, everything was fine and dandy. Is how we present on social media that life is fine and dandy, and it's not necessarily. So I think it was that, and the culmination of just the concern about judgment, the whole the failure piece, and really it was more about what will people think of me. I knew it was the right decision for me, but I was just like, what are people going to think of me? And I carried that with me. And then the overworking, and then the overworking. I just worked far too much, worked myself into the ground, and I guess I recognized that there was a problem when I was forgetting things in my personal life, like anniversaries and birthdays, and that's just not like me at all. And then I think I just got to the point when I was working that I started to not care about my job. And that was a massive change for me, but I just thought it was a phase. I just thought, oh, Sally, pull yourself together. You're being an oversensitive idiot. You'll get through this. Just give yourself a week or so. Because I've had low mood before, but it's lasted a few days and I've come out the other side. But this one wasn't really going away, but I still lacked that insight to realize that there was a real problem. I just thought, okay, it's lasting a bit longer. Pull yourself together, Sally. Come on, stop being so emotional and all this kind of stuff. So that went on for quite a while. And it's actually kind of when life settled, that's when my body and my mind just stopped. So at the time I was overworking, my HR assistant had also left. So we were recruiting at the busiest time of year. We had grad recruitment, we had salary review, we had year of end appraisals. So trying to manage all of that. And then we managed to get our new person, who was absolutely fantastic and amazing. And he joined. And then that's when I just started to plummet and nosedive. And it's just when I'd moved into my new flat. My life was settled. I'd had that security of having somewhere to live. I was in a newfound relationship as well. So a really happy and healthy relationship there. And that's when I took a nosedive. My body and mind just said, no more, you can't do it anymore, essentially. But it took a while for me to talk about that. So I started feeling like that in January, but I didn't go to the GP. I think it wasn't until March. So it was 6-8 weeks. I was kind of in that downward spiral, so to speak. So and it was my line manager that said to me, Sally, I'm wondering if you should go to the GP, just talk about how you're feeling. I'd had a couple of conversations before that, and I thought I'd shared it, so I felt a lot better having shared it. But then after 2-3 days, I'd just be right back down there again. So I had more conversations at work, and then that's when my line manager said, I think maybe you should go to the GP.
Yeah. And it seems like quite obviously a few things which happened to get to where that state was. Break up relationship, then obviously the situation after that and all that kind of comes, and the worries and stress of what that breakup means. And then when you're working hard, you can replay yourself into it. Then you hear this a lot when people kind of take a holiday, an extended period of holiday. Busy people take an extended period of holiday. That first 3 or 4 days, people begin to get unwell because they've thriven off of that working period and that kind of continuously go situation. So you can see how that's confounded and obviously impacted you, and then you had that lull. And I think you can correct me if you're wrong. You speak to a lot more people and probably have these conversations a bit more than I do. But when you experience that depression for the first time, you're not really sure what that is. You just kind of, are you down, or was it, maybe the reason why it took you so long to reach out, was it because you just didn't believe it was depression, or you didn't believe you was unhappy or needed help, or was it the fact you just were not confident enough to reach out for help?
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it's probably all of those things. I think there was a sense of denial. I think there was a sense of probably self-stigma. Pull yourself together, Sally, just crack on with it. Just give yourself a week, you'll be all right. So I was doing a lot of that. There was this element of not feeling safe to talk about my feelings, but naturally I've never been a talker about feelings anyway. And then talking about how I was feeling when I was in a down state, yeah, that was never a goer for Sally growing up. So I've had to learn to do that much more now over the last few years, talk about how I'm feeling and just volunteer the information rather than being, because when I'm in a really deep, difficult place, then I just need to volunteer that information, because otherwise I'll just ruminate and sit on it. So I think it's probably a combination. Pardon?
Our brain just kind of continuously just keep playing it in our head. Even if you're in a conversation, your brain is just kind of wired just to keep thinking about, whether you're busy and it's positive, your brain will think about that. But if it's negative, your brain's going to think about the negative the whole time.
Yeah.
You can see how that can really kind of begin to affect you.
Yeah. And I think the denial piece was really obvious, looking back now, because I went to the GP and he said, depression, what do you want me to put on your certificate? Stress at work. I was like, stress at work. I've had some good conversations with my line manager. She knows what's going on, so it's fine. So I didn't even want him to write it down. I never at that time, I never had a sick note that said depression and anxiety. Because I think I was just in denial, but at the same time, I was kind of like, okay, so this is a real thing that makes sense why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. So whilst I was pleased that there was a reason, I also felt angry. I can't believe you've done this, Sally. Why have you done this to yourself? This could have been avoided. And then I was just beating myself up as well, all of which was unhelpful.
No, it doesn't help, does it?
No.
You've got to be that self-awareness piece, which I know you're very good at now. So you've been diagnosed. What was then that phase to getting yourself thriving again? Let's use the word thriving, or happier and more sustained again.
Yeah, so the GP initially signed me off for 2 weeks, and I thought that's all I'll need. All I need is a little bit of a break from work, because I just felt it was all the overworking. And that period while I was off, I was very lucky. My new partner took 2 weeks off work with me, so I wasn't on my own. So I was very fortunate that we got to spend every day together. But there were specific times where I really remember how difficult it was getting out of bed and saying to myself, right, Sally, you're going to have a good day today. You're going to have a good day. And then I couldn't move my body out of the bed. So it took me forever to get up, let alone getting washed, getting dressed and things like that. But we tried to do nice things. So we'd had like vouchers for Christmas. So we kind of managed to book them in on that week. So we took a trip up to, Tower Bridge and had kind of cream tea in the afternoon. So we just used one of the Christmas presents and found new walks and stuff like that. So my partner was very supportive in trying to help me do things, but also support me in making decisions, because I couldn't make a decision for love nor money during that time. So when the doctor said to me, oh, what are you going to do today? I took my other half with me as a kind of rock, and I just said, I don't know. What are we going to do today? And the doctor was kind of like, no, you can decide what you're going to do today. I was just like, really? I can't make a decision at all. So my confidence was just completely shot at that time. And there were some really, really difficult days in that 2 week period, but I went back to work after that 2 weeks, and it was probably too soon, but feelings of guilt, it's all part of the depression. I was letting people down. I was letting the team down. I need to get back to work. But I had a really fantastic phase to return to work, lots of understanding. And essentially day one, they said to me, what time do you want to come in? I was like, can I come in for 10? Because I can't really get up at the moment. It's quite difficult to do early mornings. And then I went into work, and my line manager said, so what do you have in mind for today? What does work look like for you today? And she just left the floor open to me, and really supported me in kind of feeling in control. And I was kind of like, I imagine myself being here for half the day, just catching up on my emails, and then I'm going home again. And then I kind of built my...
She supported you through that, did she?
Oh yeah, absolutely amazing.
That's awesome. That's very good. That's very good to hear.
But she did also say to me, I can see you're not your usual self. And we were talking about kind of therapy and medication. And the doctor had said to me when I initially went, the options are medication, or you could have talking therapies. That's a much kind of a longer term solution, but you might need medication to start off with. No, I'm not taking medication. Stigma around medication. I don't want to add chemicals into my body. Ignorant, no idea what antidepressants actually do. And she kind of said to me, well, it might just be the boost that you need to support you feeling like your usual self. And I was like, okay, when you put it like that, that's probably a good point. So I did go back to the GP, and I was prescribed with medication, so antidepressants, and the dosages was increased 3 times to get to my kind of normal and feeling like my normal self. Side effects of those horrendous. But after a week or 2, those kind of side effects went away, and then I could start to feel after about the initial month that I started to feel better, but not my usual self. So then I went back, had a review, increased, and then it increased again. And then I started to feel like my normal self whilst building up my work. At the time, I was a regional HR advisor. I couldn't face the thought of facing people. So I almost took a back step and became a back office assistant administrator. So, there was an amendment to my duties, an amendment to my hours. And then over the course of 2016, that kind of just increased. And I would probably say around the June, July time, I was probably more consistent with my mood. And then kind of through the summer, August, September, I started talking to the GP about coming off my medication because I'd been kind of stable for a long enough period.
Yeah, okay. Makes sense. Interesting story. I want to ask you about kind of any habits. I know you really well, and I know there's a few things you love. That's netball, being active, walks, family, and stuff like that. What to get you out of the depression? Was you doing that before? What did you then put back into place?
Yeah, so I probably, what was I doing? It's a really great question. So the walks have always been a thing. But it was those moments where I felt really bad. I remember one evening sitting on the sofa. It's like 10 o'clock at night, raining, dark, cold. And my other half looked at me and he said to me, "How are you feeling?" And I'll say the polite way, like rubbish. And he said, "Come on, let's go for a run." And I was just like, "Oh no, I can't do it. I can't move from the sofa." And he was so gentle and patient. He just said, "You can do it, and you'll feel better afterwards." And I'm thinking, I know I'll feel better afterwards. I know you're right, but I just
now
I can't move. I can't move.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Come on, let's do this." And he went off and he got my trainers for me. He's like, "Come on, here's your trainers." I was like, "Oh." It probably took 5-10 minutes to actually get me off the sofa, but at no point was he impatient. At no point did he get angry. He was just really, really encouraging. We went out for a run. Yeah, 10 minutes, nothing hugely awful or tiring, but it was enough for me to actually feel a lot better. And I thanked him when I got in. So it was in those moments of, him encouraging me a lot and me taking the action to do it because I knew it would make me feel better. I did actually start to do sketching and drawing as well, which was completely new for Sally. So the first drawing I did was a swan, and I was quite impressed with myself. And I kind of just dipped in and out of that.
I'm picturing like a 5-year-old's version of a swan in just like a pen.
Go with a 10-year-old. But yes, I kind of started to enjoy copying things. So I can't draw from memory, but if I look at something, I'll draw it. I drew a picture of my nephew from a photo and stuff like that. So that was brand new to me, doing something quite creative. Something else, somebody had talked to me about keeping a mood diary, and I was just like, no, I'm not convinced. But what I did do instead is I wrote down all the things that I did every day. Mm-hmm. So all the things that we take for granted. So I would write down on, in a book, I got out of bed. I washed myself. I got dressed. I poured cereal into a bowl and I poured milk, and I got the spoon out and I ate it. So when I looked at the list by the end of the day, having captured everything down, I was like, whoa, I've done loads today.
Yeah.
because those simple day-to-day tasks just felt so overwhelming. But actually seeing it, it makes me feel a bit emotional. Seeing it broken down in that way, I was just like, I've done those today, and I feel really proud of myself.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing that I definitely started.
Yeah, no, and I think that's it. So that's what I was trying to get to, is those kind of positive things, which could be really taken for granted when we're happy and when we're not in, and we don't have depression and suffering. But when we do, then those little habits, little things, the support from partners and family, just to kind of get you active and moving again, will really do help. So it's good. Anyway, thanks for sharing. We'll move on from your journey. I keep checking, as I told you before. I mean, one of my clients' gyms, so making sure I don't want to upset them. So let's look back to COVID or mental health as COVID hits us. What have you seen over the past 2 years has been the challenges for kind of us, both as people as employers?
Yeah, so I suppose for everyone, the change and uncertainty and how the last couple of years have impacted us in such different ways. And we've been talking about this same storm, but we're all in different boats. You know, that's been the poem that we've discussed. And some people have had super yachts and some people have had a canoe without an oar. And it's impacted us all in such different ways. So, you know, people have experienced the loneliness and isolation. People have experienced the homeschooling and feeling on top of one another and thinking, actually, I wish I could have a bit of space. So our worlds have been turned upside down at a global level. And I suppose, you know, in that March 2020, it felt very sudden, right? We're going into lockdown next week. Here's a laptop. You're now working remotely. And that was it. So for the people who need that social connection, the people who get their energy from their teams being in the office with one another, that was a massive change for them and a real struggle. And equally, people who prefer the quiet space, even then, feeling out of control of your working environment and how you're going to be working now. So any change in uncertainty.
And I also think even if you are an introvert and you like your own space, that doesn't take away from what the impact of social interaction does do to you.
Yeah.
I think we are, by nature and by evolution, we are tribesmen. We are people which need people. Yeah. So when you say, even if it's like family is your tribe, it's your own personal tribe, but it's not the tribe of community we have from work, from sport, from community events and stuff like that. You take all of that away and you ask people to do it over, like we're doing now, screen to screen. It's not the same. You don't get the same amount of laughter. You don't get the same amount of feedback from people and how they feel and how comfortable you can feel and all that kind of stuff. And I think that was the biggest challenge I saw, as well as some of the other bits and pieces that you said, like the loneliness and the difficulty homeschooling and trying to work and having terrible sleep because you're still working until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and not being able to do your exercise and have the really positive habits. And I think the last thing on that was like our change in our routine. Like we are, as we are habitual animals, we like routine as much as possible. I mean, if you look back throughout this last 2 years, the hardest part for us has been the changes when Boris called for changes. So when COVID happened, we went to lockdown. That was the hardest part for 2 weeks there, getting used to being in lockdown and not seeing anybody. That was the hardest part. But when you got used to it, you got a bit better with, okay, this is my routine, this is how my day looks, this is what I can do, this is how I can do this. And then when that comes to open up, you got a bit better, you got happy, you got to see people, but that change still affected us and we have to be figuring out what's safe, what's not. And as we've kind of gone through that 2020, 2021, in and out of lockdowns again, screwed us up, made us feel a lot worse. So that was one of the hardest parts. Yeah,
I totally agree with that. And we know, well, I say we know, you know, the research tells us that since March 2020, people have felt less and less able to cope with the stress that the last couple of years have brought about. So I think in March 2020, roughly, it was about 74% of adults were reporting that they could manage the stress levels, and then that dipped down to like the 40s, 50%, you know, when it was last summer. So as time has gone on, people have felt less and less able to deal with the stress of everything that has happened.
You share stress, don't you? You share that stress when you're in a team, when you're in a community, when you're at work. You share that responsibility between you. When you feel like you probably take all on yourself when you're working by yourself the whole time.
Yeah. And I feel so fortunate in the work that I do, because I get to meet so many people in the work that I do, and I've been able to deliver online, and I've been able to connect like this. But when you maybe think about the older generations who maybe aren't that tech savvy, who aren't in work, they've really been experiencing that social isolation. And we do need that connection. Humans aren't built to be in isolation and loneliness. We're meant to be together, exactly like you say.
Yeah, and I think what you said there a second ago is like, we are quite lucky within our roles. We work for ourselves, right? We work by ourselves. But the fact we see different people continuously, you build different relationships, and you see different people respond to things. Whereas you might be, if you work in a company, you might go on a call. That might be one call. It might be one person. Whereas we're seeing different people and having different interactions, conversations with vast amount of people continuously every single day. So I think that's going to help us a bit more. Although we are business people, which spend majority of our time by ourselves, but we have different interactions. So this is where this role for me, social interaction, plays a huge part on our mental health. And I think like that's why the workplace going forward for me is so important, because it has that element of social interaction, building that tribe and that community of people. And the thing you need is that laughter and all the chemicals that stuff brings. I think that's a huge part. But instead of looking back, because when we look back, we all know the troubles we've been through, and we all know what COVID brought and how that's going to be perceived. Let's look at going forward. 2022. What do you see being the silver linings, the bright sparks coming out of this?
The silver lining and the bright sparks, I think it is going to be that togetherness. I think it is, being able to come back into those social interactions. But part of me, I think, feels that even though our reality is changing back to what we are more familiar with compared to before COVID times, there's still going to be a level of uncertainty. There's still going to be this sense of uneasiness when we are in close proximity with other people, because, quite quickly next week, I don't know if it's going to change. It might change, but all the rules aren't going to apply anymore. And I think a lot of people are still going to be worried, still going to be concerned. And there's going to be this sense of uneasiness that we are going to have to face into. We are going to have to face into it if we are going to be coming back together. So, I feel like it's going to continue to feel like a bit of a tightrope when it comes to managing our feelings, managing our behaviours, and how we start to reintegrate and re-emerge back into what is going to be the reality similar to before COVID times.
Yeah, you can see how we're not out of this yet, are we? We've still got stuff going on. We've still got to get through all of these challenges.
Yeah, and I can tell you about all sorts of research about projected numbers for mental health support and what that's looking like, and on a global scale as well. I could tell you all the numbers, and it doesn't make.
We need to get really into it. No, it doesn't. And it's not just that now, though, is it? It's not just mental health. It's the physical health element of it. People, all of that wait list. So yeah, we have to look beyond this in a way. But we still have to face it head on. And if we can face it head on, these situations, these challenges, that's going to be positive. But I don't know whether you feel this. I'm definitely feeling this going forward, and maybe it's just my mindset. I mean, that switch when I hit January. It does feel like a positive place. It does feel like companies are now making these steps, and people are recognizing this, and they are being more proactive in how they're looking after themselves. And how companies and what their companies are trying to do. They're talking about wellbeing strategies, although it's taking time for companies because of what happened with the Omicron variant, and just in general, like a strategy and a plan doesn't happen like this. It does take time. So you can see but you can see it happening. We're going to look at this. We can try and do this. We can try and make our workplace better. And because maybe this great resignation, the turnover of staff at the moment is so high, people have actually taken notice of this and beginning to make notice of what their workplace looks like, because their workplace needs to be better.
Yeah, I think there certainly has been a reprioritization for a lot of people on an individual basis, and organizations as well, which is fantastic. And I think really the last couple of years has probably tackled a lot more stigma around mental health and mental health issues as well. So we've probably expedited that a little bit, because people have had an opportunity to say, well, I'm actually not okay. And it's okay for me not to be okay, because we're experiencing this massive thing. And yes, we're experiencing it in different ways, but I think that has certainly allowed the stigma to be kind of tackled a little bit more. But yes, I think in terms of the proactiveness, building awareness, understanding, how can we better understand ourselves? How can we spot signs in other people? How can we proactively look after our well-being? Because we know that prevention is always better than cure. I think people have been really considering, I think that's been a constant for everybody over the last couple of years. How do I manage my health and my well-being?
Yeah, I think this is the nice thing. And if you look at, I say nice thing, there's a silver lining to this. And I think it is people have been brought aware of what balance is, and they've been brought aware of what is important to themselves. And normally for a lot of people, that's their health, their happiness, and their workplace, and how that looks, and their future. And future is a big part of that for me as well. Like, you're happy when you see a positive future, and normally that involves your work, and it involves what you're doing. It also involves kind of what's in the present. So, am I looking after myself? Am I happy with how I feel? Blah blah blah. All that kind of stuff plays a huge role. So yeah, I completely agree, 100%. But it's not going to be easy still, right? There's still going to be challenges coming along the way. But I think the more me and you, people like us, can help, the better. Because there's still a lot of education. Unfortunately, we don't get educated that well in how we look after ourselves sometimes. It's very blasé, and sometimes it's just small tips can make those massive changes. And it comes from our mind. This is why mental health is so important, because it rules our life, right? And like, our brain is in charge of everything we do.
Yeah.
So we need to make that positive and productive and proactive in how we set our lifestyles up and the things we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, people say our mental health is our well-being, because our mental health is built into all that we do every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just our well-being though, is it? It's our performance. It's our enjoyment. It's our everything, isn't it? It's the whole lot. Because it's the thing, you wake up and you think something, and just the process of thinking means it's your brain. And it's our mental. So
yeah,
it's a huge part. So, okay, you've touched on it a little bit within your journey. What's going to be the most positive thing we can do this year as individuals?
What's the most positive thing we can do
as individuals for our well-being and our mental health?
Oh, crikey, what a question. I mean, there's so much.
So many things to say.
There's so much that we can do. These things don't sit in isolation, do they? No. So if we're thinking about I think sleep is a priority. So we've got to consider our sleep, but we need to do that all the time. That's not just for this year, but I think it's about, engaging with our social people, our support network. That's going to be really important. Thinking about our sleep, how we look after ourselves physically. When we've been working remotely, the temptation has been, I'll just work through lunch. I'll just do that. And then we're not looking after our physical health. So, the small, tiny things can make such a difference of, actually, I am going to take 5 minutes just to go and make myself another drink. We need to do that. We're going to be more productive, actually, if we do that. What other things can we be doing? Something just came into my mind and it just fell out of my head again.
Basically, as you said, it's simple habits, is making a routine of life and understanding why you want to do it. If you can understand why this is important and what that's going to lead to, and look at that as that future planning of, this is what I want my life to be like and feel like, then that should hopefully help drive those decisions and drive those habits, which we've been saying. The research definitely shows that sleep is one of those big drivers on everything we do, not just our mental health, but our physical health. Second one is your exercise. So having those as a base is really important. I think it's a key one. But just simple mind actions, taking breaks, doing some mindfulness. And I don't do mindfulness. I have my own way of doing mindfulness. I go for it. Do some exercise. I'm in the gym. I'm mindful in the gym and I'm training because I'm by myself. When I do my stretch sessions or when I'm out for walks, I'm being mindful within those types of areas. So when I take the time to think about what's going on and I reflect continuously, I always journal every single day. And those things just make life a bit, you begin to understand what the positives are. And I think that changes your mechanics in the brain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, practicing gratitude is something that I do every day. I get outside every day. I do my physical activity every day. I make sure I drink loads of water every day. So many things that we can do. I think sometimes what stops people is, oh my goodness, there's so much I need to do. And then that can be the blocker to us actually starting. So I always think, just do one thing, focus on one thing. And maybe that's focusing on getting 9 hours in bed so you can try and get your 8 hours of sleep every night. And getting that kind of set and ready to go. Because if we try, right, I'm going to think about my sleep, I need to get out for my exercise, I need to do this, oh, I've got to do my journaling, I've got to practice gratitude, I've got to do all these things, people can start to feel overwhelmed.
As a whole, that's massive, right? But as an individual thing, when you try to just do that, it fits into place, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think trying and testing different things as well, because not everything works for everybody. I've had people kind of share with me in the training room, oh, I've tried this kind of meditation app, and then I'm like, well, why doesn't it work for me? It works for my friend, it doesn't work for me. What's wrong with me? And it's kind of like, okay, you might need to try it a few times. Actually, it might not be the thing for you. So we need to try and test different things, but through that process, be a bit compassionate and kind to ourselves rather than beating ourselves up, because that's such a common go-to that, oh, it's not working for me. Why is it not working for me? What's wrong with me? What's my friend? All those kind of things.
That's not making you happy either, is it? Like your ultimate goal is to make you kind of happier. So just look at it, try it and test it, and look at it. I think you go in that mindset, and that's going to make it more productive within you and proactive within how you're thinking. We got like 4 minutes. So we spoke about what we can do as individuals. So I think that's really important, because only you as an individual can make a change. But how can an employer now support that? What can an employer do this year, 2022, to improve their workplace and their employees?
Yes, I think from a workplace perspective, the good starting point is always doing a check in the lay of the land. But I think it's all about communication. Everyone is individual. We can't have this broad brush approach that, okay, we're going to organise 6 weeks of PT. Well, actually, for some people, 6 weeks of PT, not interested. I would rather do yoga, or I don't know. But we need to speak to people to understand what are their wants, what are their needs, what are their drivers, what's their why, so that we can understand and build those strategies around that. Because a broad brush approach, a one size fits all, is never going to work, because we all experience our health and wellbeing in very, very different ways. So I think it's about getting the conversation started. And really, you want everybody at all levels to be involved with that, to really build that culture of workplace well-being. Yes, you need the senior leadership on board, and you need those people kind of thinking about the policies and strategy and making sure that that is kind of filtered through the organisation. But you also want people involved at all levels who are feeding in, coming up with ideas. So you're much more likely to get traction with all those different initiatives that you're going to do.
Exactly. I think you've hit the nail on the head, right? Covered a few different areas there. It's that communication, understanding where our baseline is, what our people want, what's going to be beneficial for our people. And then once you have that, and that's not just within changing the wellbeing, it's changing the workplace as well. How do people want to work? What's going to be beneficial for that workplace? Also understanding the needs of what the workplace needs as well. You do need community, we need tribes, as we spoke about. So I don't think that just means everybody works from home, because that's what people have written down. It's building a bit of a compromise to everything, and just trying and testing stuff. Some things might work, some things might not, but try it, because you'll find out that way. Sometimes it could just be as easy as having like a morning coffee once a week. It could just be one thing which brings people together during their time of work, or weekly calls and management reach outs and stuff like that make a huge difference. But just think, for me, as you said, helping senior leaders understand why this is important, because you see it, unfortunately, quite a lot. You must know this with conversations you have, that you reach out to a company, you're speaking to the HR, but there's a block somewhere. And I think the block is senior leaders don't understand it or don't see it, because they're in their own little vibe of being happy and well. They can't understand why somebody else isn't like that. So being able to educate them and understand how they can, or why this is important to people, why this is important to their workplace, and to really show them that they need to be doing more, is, to me, important. One of the big parts is that senior leader role. And I always remember Mike Jones, our friend Mike Jones, from Better Happy, always talks about giving the ability for people to do it, give this support, help them learn how to do it, give them the education, give them that tool to learn for themselves, and then obviously understanding part. So they're looking at 3 areas of what he always says, and I always stick in my brain whenever I think about it. But there's lots of stuff to do. And for me, always coming from this education piece, if we can learn about something, it's going to help people progress and help them give them to themselves, and then just changing that culture.
Yeah. And I think, what we learn, we have to take action on. There's no point in having knowledge if you're not going to do anything with it. So, get the knowledge, build your understanding, build your awareness, and then act on it. Otherwise, there's just no point in gaining that knowledge.
Yeah, completely agree. Sally, our time has come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
It has been great talking to you. Hopefully people might leave some stuff in the comments. We can answer those, and I can answer those. If you have any questions from either myself or Sally, obviously connect with us, have a chat. If you want to have a meeting about the stuff we can do as employees' health and how Sally can help, give us a shout. We've got some really cool stuff coming, some bits we can do to support you guys going forward 2022. But other than that, thanks for joining. I look forward to our next one's going to be in 3 weeks' time rather than 2, just because it's the week before Sleep Week, and we have the wonderful Dan White talking about sleep and its role on well-being, mental health, physical health. So that's going to be a really interesting one as well. Very topical, which is brilliant. So yeah, good to see you all. Sally, thank you for joining me. We will do this again soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
Bye-bye.